you're someone who enjoys horror movies, you're probably aware of this very familiar trope. The animals get one whiff of a supernatural presence before the humans. The dogs, in particular, are the first to sense the presence of something otherworldly. Usually, they try in vain to make their owners understand that something's wrong. On many occasions, the dogs are even the first victims because the evil entities try to get rid of the loyal guard first. This time around, we have a movie which puts a unique spin on that trope. Here, the dog is actually the protagonist. Good Boy shows us the horror unfolding from the dog's perspective, and the concept is undeniably intriguing. In this video, we're going to break down the movie for you and also elaborate on the implications of the climax. There are going to be some major spoilers along the way, so you've been warned. Before we get too deep into things, we also have a very quick request. If you like the content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now, let's begin. How is the good boy able to sniff out the evil entity? The story is quick to introduce us to the titular good boy named Indy, who's a Nova Scotia duck-tolling retriever. The smart canine accompanies his master Todd, a young man suffering from a chronic lung disease. He relocates from New York City to his late grandfather's rural, uninhabited home in the woods, and his canine partner Indy is also there with him. We soon get the hint that something isn't quite right with the new residents, and Todd's sister Vera is worried about Todd's isolated new life at this house. She believes that the house is haunted, and she's convinced that there's something unnatural about the death of their grandfather who died in that very house. Meanwhile, Indy immediately senses a mysterious presence in the home, and this presence initially manifests itself through shadows as a dark skeletal figure drenched in mud. Fortunately, Indy is only a dog, and he's not able to communicate his concerns to his master, who remains oblivious to the dangers.
I just found him like this.
What's the mystery around the death of Todd's grandfather and his missing dog? The plot thickens further as more is revealed about the death of Todd's grandfather when Todd and Indy encounter their longtime neighbor Richard while roaming the surrounding woods. Richard also warns them about the fox traps that he's set in the area, and he tells Todd all about how he was the one who found Todd's grandfather after his death. He also revealed how his grandfather's golden retriever Bandit went missing since. As for Indy, he remains observant as ever, and he has a few more encounters with the dark entity in the house. There's also an apparition of Bandit, and this one seems like a friendly spirit who leads Indy upstairs. Here, beneath a wardrobe, Indy finds a bandana that was worn by Bandit. It becomes quite clear that Bandit is no more. Indy also has some troubling dreams about the dark entity attacking him, and he also gets visions of Todd's grandfather, who seems to have died from a similar disease to the one that Todd is suffering from currently. As for Todd, his condition continues to worsen, and he starts to regularly cough up blood. He also becomes increasingly aggressive, even towards his canine friend and his sister Vera, who still checks up on him regularly over phone calls. One night, Indy wakes up to find Todd in an incoherent state. He's slamming his head against the basement door. Indy is helpless, but he never gives up and tries his best to support his master in these dangerous times. He also spots the figure approaching the bedroom, closes the door between them, separating Todd, collapses. This is the moment in the film that tells us that the entity has sinister intentions. There's something very bad awaiting Todd unless Indy can pull off a miracle. Can Indy become the savior and rescue his master from the entity? Ending explained. Once the entity closes the door between Indy and Todd, the clever dog realizes that he needs to find help. He sets out to find Richard so that he can help Todd, but as luck would have it, he gets caught in one of the fox traps set by him. When Todd later learns about this, he reprimands Indy without knowing what the good boy was really up to, keeps him on a leash outside, forcing him to sleep in a doghouse. Even though he's forced to be outside, Indy continues to be vigilant and senses the dark entity once more. He hears Todd coughing from his bedroom, and the entity attempts to attack Indy. However, Indy is able to break free by knocking over the doghouse and breaking the chain, and as he makes a run for it, finds the home's cellar door mysteriously open. He enters the house and comes across the corpse of Bandit, confirming our earlier fears. On the other hand, Todd is extremely weakened by now, and the entity approaches him in the bedroom. But Indy hasn't given up on his master yet, and like a true loyal friend, he jumps into the bedroom to save him from the entity. He tries to comfort Todd, but then comes a shocking and unexpected twist. Todd turns and faces his own dead body on the bed. He realizes that he's died, and he gets dragged by the entity through the house and into the basement. Indy chases after him in a desperate attempt to free him, but Todd is pulled into a dark tunnel. In his final moments in the mortal world, Todd tells Indy that he's been a good dog and comforts him by saying that he can't be saved. Soon, he's covered in muck and taken permanently by the dark and mysterious entity. When his sister Vera arrives the next morning, she discovers Todd's lifeless body. When she comes outside, she spots Indy sitting at the bottom of the cellar entrance, and she tearfully calls out to the dog, who responds by walking towards her. Yes, he failed to save his master. Indy was up against dark forces beyond his understanding and capabilities. He still remained by Todd's side even after his death. I don't think there could be a better title for the movie. Why the death of Todd actually makes sense in the movie. We know it's not what viewers would expect, because a film like this usually has the dog play hero by saving his master, but not this time, because in spite of his best efforts, Indy is unable to help Todd. We have a different take on this, and according to us, the death of Todd is perfectly in line with the central theme of the movie. There are several hints throughout the film that Todd is seriously ill, and even the opening sequence shows Indy noticing something strange in Todd's apartment as he suffers from an unexplained seizure. Later, it's revealed that Todd has developed a fatal condition that cannot be cured by medicine. It's also explained in the film that the entity in the house also claimed Todd's grandfather through a similar illness. We would also like to think that the death of Todd from his illness or from the haunting of the entity is actually a reflection of how Indy sees the whole situation. For Indy, Todd comes across as a haunted self who used to be, and it can even be viewed as a dark personification of a fatal disease that took Todd away. For a dog, it's one of the most painful things to be separated from their master. The whole situation is basically Indy's understanding of a fatal genetic illness. Thus, the death of Todd was inevitable, and it actually keeps the mystery intact as the narrative doesn't try too hard to explain it all. What is the true nature of the entity, and why did it haunt Todd and Indy? The entity in Good Boy appears as this sinister, mud-soaked, skeletal figure that lurks in shadows, manifests through dark doorways, and eventually drags Todd into that cavernous basement tunnel. The film deliberately keeps the entity's true nature ambiguous, and there are two compelling interpretations that both lead to the same tragic conclusion. First, there's the literal supernatural reading. This dark force seems tied to the house itself and Todd's family bloodline. It already claimed his grandfather, who died from a similar lung disease, and now it's coming for Todd. The entity can physically manipulate the world around it, slamming doors, creating shadows, and ultimately possessing enough power to drag Todd's spirit to what looks like a mythic underworld beneath the house. The mysterious cave in the basement almost feels otherworldly compared to the rest of the rural setting, suggesting something ancient and malevolent has taken residence there. But this is where the film gets really clever. The entity is simultaneously a metaphor for death itself, specifically Todd's terminal illness. From the very beginning, we see Todd with an IV drip, coughing up blood, visiting doctors who tell him there's nothing they can do. His sister Vera even mentions early on that dogs can sense when something's wrong with a person, which explains why Indy is the only one who can see this dark presence. What's brilliant about this dual interpretation is that both readings work perfectly. Whether you see it as a genuine supernatural entity or Todd's illness personified through Indy's limited canine understanding, the result is the same. Todd dies, and there's absolutely nothing Indy can do to save him. The entity doesn't really threaten Indy directly. It's only interested in separating him from Todd because its true target is always Todd's life. What makes this even more tragic is the parallel with Todd's grandfather's dog, Bandit. Indy discovers Bandit's corpse in the basement. The poor dog starved to death waiting for his owner to return, unable to understand that death is final. The film sets up this heartbreaking choice for Indy. Will he make the same mistake and waste away waiting for Todd? Will he accept Todd's final command to move on and live? Well, thankfully, Indy chooses the latter, and Todd's final words of appreciation do him a world of good.
Shitty horror films. It keeps taping over them.
Can there be a sequel to Good Boy? The movie leaves plenty of unanswered questions, and the open-ended climax means that there's definitely room for a sequel. Todd's sister might try to unravel the mystery behind the death of her brother and grandfather, and she might run into the entity as well. Also, Indy will have an opportunity to avenge the death of his master by serving as a smart and loyal accomplice for Vera. The sequel can explore the story further, and a second part of the story can actually clarify a lot of stuff. However, all of this depends on the success of the movie, because the sequel is only possible if it appears to be commercially viable for the creators. There's been no official word on a sequel as of yet, so maybe we're anticipating a sequel just a little too early. marvelous verdict, a unique horror experience. Okay, before we even get started on this marvelous verdict, we have to admit our bias as sincere dog lovers. Any film with a dog in a major role is a good film by us, but all biases aside, I think Good Boy is a good movie that can be appreciated by the usual horror fans as well. It offers a fresh take on the familiar haunted house trope. The dog's perspective is an innovative touch in the narrative. The short runtime means that there's no dull moments, and some of the creepy sequences will make you sit up in your seats. We also love the deeper inner meaning of the movie, which talks about loss and mourning from the perspective of a loyal dog. Even though Indy is unable to save the day, he's still able to prove his true friendship and stand up to a threat that's much more powerful. He fights until he can't, and even though he loses that fight, he still survives to live on and potentially live a new life with Todd's sister. Overall, we feel like this is going to be one of the most underrated movies of the year, especially considering the performance of the dog, who's easily one of our favorite actors this year. Don't miss out on this unique experience, and let us know in the comments down below what you thought of the film. We'd love to hear your take on the nature of the mysterious entity and its true purpose.